What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Lake Mead. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, it is 9 a.m. and already 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so y'all better leave a like on this video for braving the heat. But I did make my way out back to Horsepower Cove, just outside the Hemenway Marina. Now, the last time I was out here with a fly rod, and I could see quite a lot of fish in the area. I've been thinking about it, been thinking about why this specific spot has that many fish. So for today, I'm going to use some baits and some lures, see if we get on some of these fish I've been seeing out here. But rather than just making a video about the fish I catch, I want to show you guys the particular spot and what it is I'm looking for and why I'm thinking these fish are hanging around here. But before we get into that, let's get some baits in the water. Alright, so in this state you're only allowed to use 2 rods per licensed angler. You're allowed to have more rods, but you can only use 2 at any given time in the water. Now, the first rod I have out here, that's my Carp setup. On this we're using simple method feeder with some back bait and some corn. Got that out in this little bay area on this side. And on our second rod, that's the one we have over there, that is on an automatic hook setter, and on that one we're using a Carolina rig with some anchovies. So that's our 2 rods baited out into water. As the day progresses, I'll swap out one of the baits for some lures. But the first question should be, why do I have my rod set up like this? Why do I have the Carp one on that side and the anchovies on this side? And why not swap them around? Okay, so not everyone is exactly the same. For instance, I can handle the heat out here, but I know my wife can't. And that's true for a lot of people. Some people can, some people can't. But if you're someone that can handle the heat and get out there fishing, summer is a very good time to find fish. Now, the most important thing is finding the fish. The fish are going to be driven by 2 major factors. First one being the water temperatures, and the second one being food. Now, because it's hot, water temperatures rises and the fish metabolisms pick up, so they need to be feeding more. So you can find fish during the heat of the day as well, but it is up to you as the angler to be thinking about what type of fish it is that you are looking for and how to target them. Now, different species of fish tend to behave differently. For instance, carp, they tend to come up to the shallow flats looking for food in summer, as well as some channel catfish that will also patrol the flats. And once the sun gets a bit higher, they just tend to move out into a bit deeper water, whereas something like bass and stripers, they tend to stick to the deep water. They might come up to the flats looking for some bait fish, but they will be the first ones to head out to deeper water. Now, please understand this, when I'm talking about deeper water, I'm not necessarily talking about 70 feet worth of water. Yes, the deeper water is going to be a lot cooler, but there's a certain sweet spot where the fish like to be. And that brings us to the particular cove that I'm fishing today. On this side, we have some arms going back in, some little coves, bit of shallow water, and it drops off into deeper water. And that goes out into the main part of the lake. And then we have the little point that I'm fishing on. And on this side of the point, there is a big, large, flat area. Now, unfortunately, the human eye is a lot better than the little camera. The camera does not pick up everything that I'm explaining to you. But if I'm standing on the main part of the point going into the water, you'll see that on this side, there's a little flat going in. We have a flat spot, whereas on this side, there's a deep drop off. Just got to head on a little anchovies, but the rod setter didn't go off. And this is exactly why I have the 2 different setups out there the way that I have. I have my Carp setup out on the flats, thinking that's where the carp will be patrolling, looking for food, whereas something like stripers and bass might be in the deeper water. That's why I have the anchovies in the deeper water. Now, when I'm talking about deeper water, these fish love to suspend in the water. If you have something like this where there's a drop-off, the fish will sit on that, and as it gets hotter, they just drop down a couple of feet in the water, going down to the bottom, or just suspending in mid-water, waiting for some bait fish to come past, and they just go and grab them. That is why I want to be fishing in this little cove here, because we have this deeper bank, the deeper drop-offs, And this is what we're looking for in summer. We're looking for the seam line. Now the seam line, what I'm meaning by that, that is the area where the water turns a darker color of blue. As the ground slopes into the water, you can see it's brown and it gets kind of green, and there's a certain point where the water turns dark blue. Now, it's very difficult for the little GoPro to pick it up, but you can see it with your physical eyes. You can see where the deeper part is. That is the perfect spot where predatory fish will be sitting. That seam line, that deeper, darker part. All they do is drop down into the cooler water down below. But like I said, it's not just the water temperatures determine the fish, but also food. Now, a lot of the times the bait fish will be on these little flats and they get chased into the deeper water. That is why I like this particular spot, because we have the flats and the deeper water, thinking this is a prime location for fish to be sitting on that seam line, waiting for some of the bait fish to be chased out, and they just come up and they grab them. Now the seam line is all across the lake. You will find this deeper part, this darker seam where the water is a bit deeper, but it is these specific spots that you're looking for, something where there will be food in the deep water as well, and not just some deep water. Now, of course, it can take quite a long time for the carp to find the little corn, so we're going to leave that one soaking out there. But this rod, seeing how we got a pull on that, I'm thinking maybe our anchovies were stolen, so maybe we need to rebait this one. Going to give the baits an hour or two, and then maybe swap out to some lures, because we want to try and fish that seam line. Alright, so we look to have a little hit on our anchovies. Let's see if there's a fish on there. Does not feel as if there's anything there. Nope, just destroyed the anchovies. Let's rebait, get it out there again. Alright, I've now rebaited this rod several times. Seems there's some small fish stealing the baits out where I got it at the moment. I'm thinking these might be some small bass, some 2-inch, 3-inch bass. But after having a look around, I noticed that inside of the cove there's something like 10 channel catfish circling around there. Also have a big carp here in the deeper part of the water column. Maybe we need to move our baits a bit deeper. But for now, I'm thinking maybe taking those anchovies, going into the little cove there, see if maybe we can get a channel catfish. We have a little coyote looking for some shade. First time now that he knows I'm here. I'm downwind of him. Alright, it's now been a couple of hours. Still have our carp baits out there, but I'm putting away the anchovies for now. I'm going to swap over to some lures. The main idea was actually to throw around some lures today. I'm going to be doing that before it gets too hot. Alright, so it's already extremely hot out here today. Something like 45 degrees. I think it's going to get a lot hotter than that today. Not even close to midday yet. It's already that hot. But that means I'm swapping over to some different lures. I'm going to try and cast into the deep water, see if we get some bass or some stripers maybe patrolling the area. I want to try and get on that line and bring in my lures parallel to that line, giving myself a lot better chance of fish seeing the lure. But what is this magical line that I'm talking about? That is, of course, where the water gets a bit deeper, so people tend to think that's where the drop-off is. That's not necessarily how it works. Yes, it does get deeper, so there is a drop-off, but it has to do with the sunlight. The sunlight hits the ground and it reflects back. But as you go deeper, the first rays that get absorbed is the red wavelength. and the only one strong enough to make it back out of the deep water is the blue. That's why you see that blue line. Now the general idea, fish will be sitting on that line, especially the bass, and as it gets hotter they just sink down a bit, and as the sun gets up they sink even further down. So the general idea is you cast out, bring in, cast back out, let it sink down, count to something like 5, bring back in, and you continue this, letting it sink deeper and deeper till you find out where the fish are. I'm imitating bait fish this time of year, because as the bait fish swims over into the deep water, these fish shoot up and catch them. If you use something like a Ned rig at the moment, you might catch fish, but these fish tend to be looking upwards, not downwards, so they might not even see your little Ned rig. That's why something like a wacky rig worm works, because it's falling slowly in the water column, whereas things that you fish on the bottom, the fish maybe aren't seeing that. That's why moving baits is a lot better idea during the heat of the summer. Try and find the fish. Alright, so far another catfish here in the water. I've seen tons of fish. Had some smallmouth bass follow one of my lures. Seen some largemouth bass. Tons of little catfish around. Seen quite a few carp swimming around. And so far we've not caught anything. Now yes, it might be the fact that it's in the middle of the day. It might be the low pressure system that keeps the heat around this area. Or maybe some moon phases or anything like that. There can be a million reasons for struggling to find fish. But the main thing is to not give up hope. Just keep on casting, keep on trying, and eventually you'll get on something. Don't know what it is yet, quite a distance out there, but we had something go for one of my lures. That's why I say keep the faith. Got a few bass following this one. This is a little smallmouth bass. There's a school of them all together. Seeing 5 or 6. Often travel in packs finding a good place where bait will be. Let's quickly see if we can land this one. Don't know how well he's hooked. But I guess we'll find out. There we go, first fish for today. Lovely little smallmouth. Lovely colours on him. Let's give him some oxygen. Lovely patterns on these bronze or brown bass. Nice little smallie to start us off. Let's get him back to the water. And off he goes. Just using simple little shad imitation, little lipless crank, casting it out, slowly bringing it back, and that little guy struck. Alright, so made another little change, swapped over to a little deep diver. This is actually an ocean lure, but it is a deeper diving lure. That's why I threw this around a while, thinking the fish are moving a bit down. The sun is very high in the air, thinking the fish will be moving into deeper water. But as much fun as it is throwing around some lures, these lures will last forever, whereas my little anchovies won't. So let's maybe get some the baits back out there, put away the lures for now. Alright, so we've got both our bait rods out there, one with anchovies, one with corn, soaking in the deeper part of the water. Let's see if the fish have moved in deeper. Strange, with all the fish swimming around, you would think the bait would get more action. There's a little channel catfish right here in front, the shallow parts as well. With all this action, you would think these bait rods get a lot more action, but it is what it is. At the moment it's very hot. It's all about enduring the heat. Remember, you need to apply sunscreen quite regularly and take in lots of fluids. But for now, while the baits are soaking, I think there's something else we can do just to cool off a bit. So I just wanted to get into the water, take a bit of a swim, while we're getting some movement on our little policeman. Little bobber is moving. Just want to see if we have some small fish nibbling on the baits, or whether there's a carp that's going to grab our hooks. Looks to be small fish. Now, smallmouth bass also from time to time will take corn. So maybe we have some smallmouth bass trying to steal my baits. But unless this thing is screaming, I'm not reeling in. Okay, so I've been getting quite a lot of hits on the anchovies, but nothing that actually sets off the rod. So I decided, let's maybe see if we can set the hook. I happened to set the hook, and we got ourselves a tiny striper. Now this little guy swallowed the hook, but we should be able to get the hook out safely using our little forceps. So let's see if we can get it out. There we go. Hook's out. Fish is not bleeding or anything like that, so we can safely release him. Alright, got our little fish in the water. Just want to make sure he swims off nice. The water is quite warm, up shallow. He looks quite confused, but he should be okay. He's swimming off. Alright, ladies and gents, I'm pretty sure you will excuse me if I don't take off the sunglasses and my hat, but I am rather disappointed in how the baits have performed today. Didn't get much action from any carp, even though I can see carp everywhere and see carp jumping. My cordon's not working. Maybe that's just Poseidon saying don't make any carp videos. Now the thing is, you don't get to see everything that happens out here. Our automatic hook setter, that thing popped off something like 6 or 7 times and there's no fish on there. And with some of the lures, I even managed to get a 2 to 3 pound largemouth bass, got it hooked, but I lost that fish and the lure I was using because I didn't tie a proper knot. And that's the big thing with fishing in this heat. It's hard to stay focused and concentrate on what you're doing. Tying a bad knot meant I lost that fish. And to make matters worse, it's not losing that fish or losing the lure that's the problem. It's actually that if I caught that fish, I would have had a hat trick, all 3 bass species. But no biggie. Still caught some fish out there, and that's the point of this video. You need to be thinking about what it is you're doing. Are you looking for the carp up in the shallow waters when one's feeding, or are you looking for some predatory fish hiding in a bit deeper, cooler water? Think about what fish you're targeting, where to find them, and you might get lucky. But as much fun as this is, it's very hot out here, and that's all the heat I can take for today. So I want to thank you guys for following me on this trip. Feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments. If you've not subscribed to the channel yet, consider doing so, joining my community. And if you haven't already, give me a little thumbs up for beating the heat out there. But like always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.